VCM Wealth Management. Vancouver lawyers Dumel and Boscovich. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. David and Mark Goodman. We are suffering, our guest says, from a diminution of law and order. He has called the criminal justice system in BC a tattered scarecrow. He said that in his book, Short Pants to Striped Trousers, but he has said it many times in his column in the North Shore News and on many talk shows and in the news and so on. And we're delighted that you're here with us, Wallace. Why is it a tattered scarecrow?
Well, Shakespeare used that expression in
Yes.
Measure for Measure, and I'm not a person who's read much Shakespeare, but it's totally appropriate. And he characterized it as we are experiencing it now. That is, when the law of the country doesn't cause fear in anybody, they do what they want. Whether they're presumably obeying the law or not, they do what they want. And what he said was that he said the birds of prey will sit on the old tattered scarecrow, meaning the criminals. Finally, that's where they come to roost, right on the scarecrow, and they're roosting right here in Vancouver.
We had the terrible, strange case in Toronto last year of David Chen, a guy who runs a storefront, and some local scuzzbag nut bar is going by stealing things, and so Chen chases him and catches him and holds him. What happens, not only is Chen charged with aggravated assault and kidnapping and so on, but the prosecution gets the bad guy, the thief, to be the main witness against him.
Well, see, none of them know our history. About 300 years ago or 400 years ago, there was an old man as old as me, and he was in his little castle.
Yes.
And four bad people in England came in and they were going to rob him. And he got his sword out and he killed them all. The result was he was knighted. Now, if you'd done that today, they'd rush him off to a psych ward, they'd psychoanalyze him, they'd try to show him the error of his ways. Like you were defending yourself and your property and your home is your castle, forget it. Well, it still is. The law is not protecting us.
Use the Joel Libben case, which you know very well, as an example of what's wrong with the criminal justice system.
Well, those imbeciles that attacked him, they just do maniacal violence for the sake of violence. That's Clockwork Orange.
Right.
That was predicted in that show and in that book.
This young man was mercilessly beat upon.
They went out to find somebody to put the boots to. That's all.
Result was he's permanently handicapped.
Well, he's made a remarkable recovery, but he was unconscious for several months. But that's the difficulty. You can no longer go out of your house and without looking over your shoulder. And if you're not looking over your shoulder, you're a pretty stupid person. How can a woman go into a parking lot in the evening and at night or walk down a street by herself without hearing footsteps and wondering who the heck it is?
In the Libben case, those three young men were given probation.
Well, two of them were youth offenders, or young offenders. One was an adult.
Okay.
And the thing that I found so difficult was that when Libben went through all of that, and he was recovering by the time of the trial of the two youths. The adult had already been dealt with in the Supreme Court. And Libben was asked to say some words, and he was in tears when he was talking about what they had done to him. Then the judge, God knows why he would say it. He said, I hope that my words, he had them stand in front of him. The families were there. And he said, I hope my words will bring something to these young people in the future. And I thought, oh my God, how can you do it? If that was a rape victim, is you going to ask the rape victim to stand up with the two rapists and sort of
Yeah, he seemed more.
say we'll forgive each other?
Yeah, he seemed more interested in the rehabilitation of these three guys.
Well, he doesn't understand Caesar's law. The law is not intended to make people heal them again. I mean, there's sentencing circles with Aboriginals that are meaningful, but for judges to act like they're social engineers on the bench is a mistake.
But we've made that change.
Sure we have, because that's the kind of people we have today. They mean well, they know what they're doing, but they don't know where they came from.
In your book, you have a marvelous reproduction of a marvelous Roy Peterson, a cartoon from The Sun, showing Larry Campbell's successful ride to City Hall on his favorite hobby horse, safe injection sites.
Yeah, got him all the way to the Senate, too.
Yeah, and you have called in your book, I'm safe in saying these words because I'm just quoting you, you've called Owen and Campbell Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Well, there's a third one in the mix that came along after I wrote it, and that
Sam.
was Sam. There's Tweedledum.
Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and another one.
Tweedledim, probably.
Tweedledum, okay.
Tweedledum and dim.
And why?
Because
Why do you disparage these three honorable men?
who claim they have humanity in them.
Yes.
When people are taking a poison, and you say, don't worry, it's not going to hurt you, just keep on doing it, and eventually we'll get you to stop. No mention of abstention. I don't care if it's alcohol is a dangerous poison. Heroin is dangerous poison, and yes, unless it's used in medical circumstances. Morphine the same. Even the twits that say they can smoke themselves into stupidity with marijuana are risking their health. So to blandly or blindly say we should encourage people to do that is to lose our culture. And it's all about what our culture really means, and we've lost most of it.
But the trick that the harm reductionists who support those kinds of things are using is they are intellectually medicalizing these drugs.
Well, they're carrying on an outdoor experiment in Vancouver.
Yes.
With the UBC epidemiologists, and
Yes,
they're all
yes,
getting
yes.
themselves their PhDs and everything else that academia brings them.
And getting an awful lot of grant money, tax money.
What the hell have they done for the betterment of Vancouver? Other than to say, in the last year, they were able to inject 202 addicts and bring them back to life, which is nothing more than the paramedics do. In other words, if you get somebody who's overdosed and they're lying there on the floor, what doctor would be the gatekeeper on that place and say, you've got drugs, you've got heroin, I don't know the strength, the quality, but go ahead and use it? You'd defrock him.
A couple days from now, I'm going to have breakfast with Mike Harcourt. Used to be the mayor, used to be the premier. And I know why Mike wants to see me. He wants to tell me about the good work they're doing, and other people have told me that it's good work, of revitalizing that nightmare called the downtown East Side.
Well, he's from that generation who want to psychoanalyze everything instead of assess it with common sense and deal with it and do something.
You've said that one of the worst things that the police could have done was move to Cambie Street, by the foot of the Cambie Street Bridge, because in a sense, they've lost track or lost touch with the realities of what goes on in Chinatown and Gore and Hastings.
Well, many of them weren't even born when that building was built at 312 Main Street.
Right.
That was a major undertaking by the city of Vancouver, and it was called the Public Safety Building.
I remember.
And in it, they had prosecutors, they had judges, or called magistrates then, and they had the police, and they all could work together. Then they decided that it was the cosmetic thing had to change. That is, they had to make it look better. So you move the judges out into a separate building, the prosecutors go off into that building, you leave the police alone. Police finally took when they couldn't control Skid Road, and I don't know what chief would have allowed this to happen, but they all in succession did. They didn't enforce the law right around the precincts of that building. And honest to God, one day I'm across the street in a locksmith's premises of business, getting a key made.
Across the street from the public safety building.
I'm looking across at the public safety building, now police station, and there's a guy hunched down. It's a police officer watching who's going in and out of the building to see some criminal activity. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? I'm thinking, am I in the way? So in other words,
Is he taking notes? What's he doing?
I don't know what the hell they're doing, but they can't control the streets. The streets around that building aren't safe. Women who worked in the prosecutor's office on some occasions have had trouble with people on the street being attacked. Sheriffs similarly, such that they would, put a different coat on. You cannot underestimate the danger that goes on down there.
We just have a few minutes left. The Premier, for some reason or other, made this very curious appointment and put Wally Opal in charge of the Missing Women's Inquiry. I won't do 20 minutes about why I think it's a curious appointment, but already the people involved are crying for his removal.
Well, it's a limp noodle appointment by a limp noodle chief law enforcement officer, not the Attorney General, but the Premier of the province is really in charge of enforcement of the criminal code in our province. And I don't think he's really being concerned with it that much.
You don't think that, we will get much out of the Missing Women's Inquiry?
Oh, it'll do a good job, as all of these things do, but what will come of it? The women are still going missing across the
Yes.
roads, the highways in the north,
Yeah,
and across
the Highway of
Canada.
Tears, yeah, of course.
And that toll will continue. And it will continue as long as they don't take people and lock them up for a long time.
Are you a crying voice in the wind, or are there any others who would like to see some courts and prosecutions with real teeth?
Well, the judges close ranks, the police close ranks, the prosecutors close ranks. You can't break those ranks and stand out. When I did, I don't get invited by judges to speak at any of their meetings, that's for sure. And I don't have any concern about that.
You just go swimming in Ambleside.
Well, like I told the one guy, I thought murderers should stay in jail the rest of life, and one stood up at a town hall meeting and said, I'm one of them. I said, well, you go your way, I go mine. And I say that with the judges. They can go their way, but it's on their conscience if they can't bring order to the streets of Vancouver and Canada.
How is it possible that someone an infant shakes a baby and causes permanent brain damage and receives a not guilty sentence? How is that possible?
That's abstract logic of the worst kind.
Wallace Craig, it's always an honor to see you. It's always great to talk with you. Thanks for being here.
Well, you're welcome.
Okay. Next week, former BC Attorney General Jeff Plant will be here. We're going to talk about casinos, talk about crime and punishment. There's an awful lot of questions to ask about casinos. We're not stupid. We know that the province needs money. The question is, does it need it that badly? All right, and another reminder that to get in touch with us, just go to davidberner.com. Thank you so much for being with us. Join us again next week.